Howdy folks, now let me tell you a little story. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was really heavily involved with MIDI tackle on the development of what at the time was a really popular range of poles. The XK55 was the top of the tree, and it was a Reactacore range of poles. Now, fast forward to present day, I haven't got any tackle sponsorship really, no ties to any manufacturers. I got a phone call about 6-7 months ago from MIDI. Rob, we're developing a brand new range of poles. Can you just come, have a bit of a chat with us, tell us what you think, maybe give us a little bit of a guidance. Now, just before Christmas time, the new poles have arrived. I've got my brand new pole, and this is its first outing with an actual production model. I'm here at Lakeview Fishery. I love going to Snake Lakes at this time of year because at least I know the fish are nearby. I could go to a big open expanse of water and the fish could be miles away from me, probably on the other side of the lake, but on a Snake Lake, quite small lakes, I know the fish are quite close proximity to where I'm fishing, so should be easy to find a few. What I want to do today is just give you guys a few tips of how I target a Snake Lake in the winter. Let me talk to you about the baits I've got with me today and how I'm going to use those baits. First up, some nice fresh maggots. There's a tackle shop on site today, so I just went in there, grabbed a pint of maggots, reds with a few whites in there, and these are the bait that if I'm going to feed anything, I think these are the good bait that I'm going to feed. Throwing some bait in about 5 or 6 metres straight down the middle of this Snake Lake's a really good tactic, and it works on Snake Lakes up and down the country. Late on, that's how I expect to catch a lot of fish, by feeding a bit of bait, laying my rig in through the loose feed, catching fish just as the rig settles. I think that'd be a really good tactic late on. Maggots are also great for tapping a few in, you know, up that far shelf maybe, when those fish back off mid-match. The bait that I expect to catch a lot of fish on today is some bread. I've got with me a full loaf of bread, just grabbed a loaf from the shop this morning on the way here. I like to use the freshest bread possible. Nice thick white sliced bread is the ideal bait for just punching out, using small discs and dobbing around your peg. Not feeding any bait, but just trying to find a little pocket of fish. And when the bread swells up, quite often this time of year, fish, that's the only bait they'll take. So it's a great bait that if you don't want to loose feed any bait around your peg, it's a great bait for catching some fish on. The other bait that I've got with me, and I wouldn't be without on, you know, any sort of Snake Lake or commercial when I'm pole fishing, is sweet corn. The water's quite clear. Obviously, sweet corn, it's really visual in the water. And if I'm getting pestered by a lot of small fish today, and I want to actually target proper carp and some bigger F1s, corn's probably going to be the bait that I might sack those maggots off and feed a bit of corn instead. So there you go, 3 baits. I like to keep things really simple, as a lot of you know. And what I'll do is I'll just rotate my swims as the day goes on and try and catch nick fish here, nick fish there. And I'm hoping that that 5 or 6 metre line down the middle with maggots is where I catch a lot of fish later on. Along with a simple bait menu, I've got simple rigs set up. I've got just 2 rigs set up. One is a deep rig, that's for the full depth down the middle of the track. That's where I expect to catch a few fish throwing a bit of bait later on. And the bottom here is really flat, so if I wanted to replumb up further out of my peg down the middle, I can use this same rig. It's a Mammoth Dusty 4x12 float. The depth we're fishing is probably about 4 foot deep. And I've shotted the rig with number 10 slot shot, just slightly strung out through the bottom half of the rig. There's no rush to get any bait down to the bottom today. You know, I don't expect it to be a brilliant day. It's the middle of winter, so just letting a bait fall nicely through the water might just catch the odd fish's eye. You might get the odd fish on the drop, and you know, any fish today is going to be a bonus. The main line is 0.14. The hook length is 0.10 to a size 18 hook. Pretty standard winter stuff. You know, maybe on the slightly finer side of what a lot of people would use, but by taking your time, using a nice soft elastic, I tend to find that I get a lot of my fish out. Next up is the rig for fishing further across. I don't expect to catch many fish in really shallow water today. So I've got a rig set 3 foot deep. I've plumbed this up across. I found a couple of spots where I'll probably feed a little bit of bait later on, but this rig will really be used for dobbing a bit of bait around, maybe dobbing a bit of bread around, a single grain of corn, 2 maggots, not really feeding anything. And what I'll do is I'll just target the far shelf, or just the bottom of that far shelf, and I'll just hang a little bit of bait, maybe a foot, 6 inch, something like that off the bottom, and just try and locate a ball of fish. It's the same float, 4x12 Dusty. The shotting's slightly more strung out, just to give an even slower fall of the bait. And this time I've got a size 16 hook on. Soft elastic, 16 hook, you shouldn't have any problems landing your fish. The reason I've got a slightly bigger hook on is because I intend to use slightly bigger baits, double maggot, discs of bread, and as that bread swells up, I want to make sure there's plenty of hook points showing, you know, to hook the fish. So there you go, 2 really simple rigs, but they should cover me for everything that I'm going to do today. Something that's really important in the winter is swim management. Now, I expect the fish today to be backing off from my fishing position all the time. It's a gravel path here, we've made quite a bit of noise setting up. Those fish are going to be really spooky. So maybe I'll catch the odd fish early on, but those fish will get spooked really easy and they'll start drifting sideways out of the peg. I'm going to start fishing close to my fishing position, straight in front of me, try and catch those 1 or 2 early fish, but then I expect to be feeding small amounts of bait or nothing at all well outside of my peg. So maybe going 13, 14, even 16 metres to the left or right, just trying to locate a few fish. As the day goes on though, hopefully the sun will come out. It's quite a misty day today, but hopefully the sun will come out. A few fish might start feeding, and then the last couple of hours of the session, we might catch a few fish a little bit shorter, 6 metres out on the loose fed maggot approach. And that generally is how snake lakes are attacked up and down the country. The closer you're fishing to your own position, the more bait you can feed. We're not talking mountains of bait, but those fish that are coming to you, they're coming to you for one reason, that's because they're hungry. And the fish that are backing off from you, they're obviously not hungry fish, so you need to alter your feeding accordingly. A lot of those fish up the far shelf, they're going to be sitting there pretty dormant, well out of the way. They don't want the aggro of me putting a load of bait on top of them. So that's why I'll just put a couple of maggots, a grain of corn, maybe even a corn skin or a disc of bread, something like that, something that flutters through the water, catches their eye, and hopefully one makes a mistake. So after a pretty tough start, we've found the fish, and this is typical snake lake behaviour. You'll catch a few fish early on, you know, especially as the water goes a little bit cooler. You'll catch a few fish early on, and then what generally happens is you start to push the fish away from you a little bit before hopefully they come back to you later on in the day. But there you go, nice F1. So at the minute I've worked my way around and I'm actually catching some fish now to my right, quite a long way to my right, 13 metres to my right, and that bread that we talked about earlier has been the bait. So see if we can hold this fella up for you. There you go, nice little F1. A 6mm punch of bread, and I'm just sort of dobbing the bait around my peg really. The rig I'm fishing is that 4x12 rig with strung out slot shot. I've got a size 16 hook and a 6mm piece of bread, 6mm disc of bread, and I'm just hanging that bread about a foot off the bottom. Obviously you've got to remember, those fish aren't hard on the bottom at this time of year. They're sitting off the bottom, they're not really going down to feed aggressively and sitting over any amount of bait. So it's just a case of finding the fish at the minute. And I think I've found a little pocket of them. Something that's really worth mentioning is elastic. So this time of year, I like to use a really, really soft elastic. This is actually the orange Reactacore. Really soft. I got it through an F1 kit. I love F1 kits because they're super stiff on your pole. You can hit those shy bites. And it just means that, okay, it might take me a little bit longer to play my fish, but I make sure that every fish comes out, or I make sure I give myself the best chance of landing each fish. Quite often we're using small hooks this time of year and a really light elastic. You know, obviously with a puller kit, you know, it gives you a really good chance of landing fish. And another little pretty carp actually. Let's hold him up. Lovely little pretty fish. Yeah, so if you take your time, even with a light kit, you're well on the way to a decent weight of fish. And I always say, if you can land every fish that you hook, you won't be far away at the end of the day. There we go, folks. a pretty little mirror carp, and I think that is a great way to end the session. Really lightly hooked just in the top lip there. Let's hold him up. I've had a fantastic day today. If this fella will just stay still for a second. There you go. I've had a fantastic day today, and it just shows that even when the water's absolutely freezing, I mean my hands are like blocks of ice now, if you scale your gear down, take your time with your feeding, locate a few fish, you can still have a brilliant day. Thanks for watching.